Spirit warriors. When God elevates you, it's not just a promotion. It's proof of heaven's justice. When someone is chosen by God for elevation, it's not merely about status or recognition. It's divine justice in action. You didn't just survive betrayal. You outlived it. The very lies that were meant to destroy you became stepping stones. The whispers in the background. They turned into testimonies. What was meant to break you became the platform that launched you. This kind of transformation echoes throughout Scripture. Take Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned. But when God's timing arrived, Joseph was not only elevated to power in Egypt, he was elevated in front of those who heard him. It wasn't just vindication, it was revelation. That same crowd who once mocked your dreams, questioned your calling, or tried to erase your presence. Now they watch in silence, stunned by your rising. Their screenshots are meaningless, their gossip holds no weight. Why? Because when heaven authorizes your purpose, no earthly rejection can cancel it. This is the sovereignty of God in motion, and the twist? Those who once spoke against you are now forced to witness your elevation. You've become a living parable, a walking sermon, not because you fought for revenge, but because you trusted God's plan. Psychology may explain behavior, but favor is something only God can grant. It's intangible, yet undeniable. Favor opens doors that credentials can't. It silences critics without confrontation, and you, chosen one, are evidence of that. So understand this. Your rise wasn't luck. It was alignment. It wasn't karma. It was kingdom. Your story was rewritten not by your effort alone, but by divine intervention. And for those wondering why they can't stop watching you now, it's simple. They see what they tried to bury bloom right in front of them. This is your season of revelation, restoration, and reign. Let's go deeper. Point 1. Your silence spoke louder than their gossip. While the world screamed for attention, you chose the quiet path. No drama, no public comebacks, no clapbacks on social media. You could have aired it all out, exposed the lies, and gone toe-to-toe with every hater in the comment section. But you didn't. Instead, you embraced a different strategy, the divine one. You went silent. Not because you didn't have something to say, but because you knew your energy was better spent building what they said you couldn't. While they were spinning stories, you were spinning vision. While they were laughing, you were leveling up. Every insult they threw, you turned into fuel. Every whisper behind your back only strengthened your focus. And guess what? The city noticed. The same people who once tuned into their drama started tuning into your discipline. They watched you rise without ever needing to drag someone else down. That kind of elevation, it doesn't come from ego. It comes from grace. See, real power doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't panic, doesn't scramble to be understood, and it sure doesn't lower itself to be petty. You knew that trying to convince small minds of your greatness would only waste time. So you let your success be the response. That's why people started paying attention, not because you shouted louder, but because your consistency was deafening. You became the story, not the rebuttal. That humility? That's not just character, it's divine alignment. There's a reason Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." Your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom in motion. It was spiritual discipline in a noisy world. You didn't just avoid confrontation, you modeled restraint, and that speaks louder than any rant ever could. Now, they're uncomfortable. Not because you embarrassed them publicly, but because you made them reflect privately. They realize you saw their games, you knew their motives, and you still chose elevation over retaliation. That's God's way. So keep walking like the chosen one you are. Let your work speak. Let your glow intimidate. Let your silence echo with dignity. Because when you move in wisdom, even your enemies become your footstool, and your story becomes a sermon. Point 2. They saw the fruits, not just the roots. When you were in your season of obscurity, they didn't see potential. They saw problems. To them, you looked like someone buried beneath the weight of failure, doubt, and isolation. What they didn't realize is that you weren't being buried. You were being planted. There's a powerful difference. Buried things are meant to be forgotten. Planted things are meant to grow. While others whispered about your setbacks and distanced themselves from your struggle, God was busy tending to your roots, strengthening your character, deepening your faith, and grounding you in resilience that no storm could shake. In nature, the most robust trees spend seasons beneath the soil, growing roots that will support their eventual height. Bamboo, for example, takes up to 5 years to grow visible shoots, but during that time, it builds an incredibly strong root system underground. When it finally breaks the surface, it grows almost explosively. Likewise, your season of obscurity wasn't a sign of defeat, but preparation. While others assumed you were stagnant, heaven was orchestrating a breakthrough that would silence every doubt. Now the fruits are undeniable. Maybe it's the business they never thought you'd launch, the inner peace they thought you'd never have, or the confidence they once mocked as delusion. Your glow-up isn't a lucky coincidence or a temporary trend. It's divine. It's the product of obedience, discipline, and enduring silence while God did the work behind the scenes. What they called failure was just fertilization. Every tear, every lonely night, every no you received was working like water on a seed, nurturing your purpose. And the fruit? That success they now admire isn't just about money or aesthetics. It's about anointing. It's purpose with power. It's peace that surpasses understanding. It's joy that can't be shaken. Now they have to admit we were wrong. But don't grow bitter, grow better. You were never planted to impress them. You were planted to fulfill a calling. Let them watch as your harvest blooms, not to spite them, but to glorify the process they never understood. So, walk boldly in your fruit-bearing season, knowing it was birthed from roots nobody clapped for. Because what God grows in the dark will always shine brightest in the light. Point 3. God set the table and invited them to watch. He prepares a table, God's divine display of elevation. Let's take a moment to revisit one of the most quoted scriptures of all time, Psalm 23:5. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Now pause and really let that sink in. This ain't just about having a feast. It's about divine demonstration. God isn't in the business of being petty. He's in the business of being purposeful. There's a difference between revenge and revelation. And what God does in your life isn't about throwing shade. It's about showing glory. See, some of the people who doubted you, mocked your dreams, or counted you out, He didn't remove them right away. Oh no, God, let them linger. He let them sit just close enough to observe, not close enough to participate. That's intentional. It's as if God pulled back the curtains and said, "Watch this. Look at what I can do with the one you disregarded." And now, they're stuck. Front row seats, no plate, no fork, no RSVP, just watching you be served everything they said you'd never get. What makes it even more powerful is your posture at that table. You're not gloating, you're not flaunting, you're just existing in the blessing. And that is what has their jaws dropping. Because it's one thing to hear you made it, it's another thing to see it with their own eyes. They can't deny your growth, your peace, your glow-up. And it's not just material success, it's spiritual maturity, inner healing, and divine alignment. That's what stings. Science tells us that observational learning, watching others succeed, can be more impactful than personal experience. So what's happening here is a lesson. God's using your life as a living parable. Your enemies aren't just witnessing your elevation, they're being schooled by it. And the crazy part? You didn't lift a finger in revenge, you didn't have to clap back, expose them, or drag them. God said, "Be still and know that I am God." And in your stillness, He moved. So the next time someone looks at you like they just saw a ghost, mouth open, face cracked, smile. Not out of spite, but because you understand the message. Elevation is the best response. Let them sit in silence while you dine in purpose. Because the table was never set for applause, it was set for glory. Point 4. You walk different, even when you had nothing. The chosen ones walk different. The mantle was always the power chosen. Ones have something that can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. It's a spiritual strut, a divine kind of confidence that doesn't come from status, wealth, or applause. It comes from something far deeper, a knowing. a soul-level recognition that you were always set apart. Even when you were broke, even when you cried yourself to sleep, even when doubt wrapped around you like chains, you still walked like royalty. You might have had holes in your shoes, but your head was held high. You didn't fake it, you faithed it. And baby, that confused the life out of people. They watched you and whispered, why they act like they got it all when they got nothing. But here's the plot twist. You been had it. Not the money, not the fame, not the spotlight, but the mantle. That invisible weight of purpose, that sacred assignment, that unshakable connection to source. See, the chosen don't need the world's confirmation because they've already been validated by the divine. And when you walk with heaven's stamp of approval, people feel it, even if they don't understand it. Let's break it down. Studies in behavioral psychology show that confidence, especially nonverbal confidence, signals leadership and competence, regardless of financial status. You didn't walk like a leader because you were rich. You walked like a leader because your spirit remembered what your mind sometimes forgot. You were chosen before you were born. Your strut, your silence, your glow when everything around you was dark. That was your spirit standing tall while your world crumbled. And trust, people saw it. At first they laughed, they mocked, they mistook humility for weakness. But now they see it. Now they know. You were never arrogant. You were anointed. You were never too much. You were too divine for small minds. And now that your light's breaking through and your life's catching up to what your spirit always knew, they feel it in their bones, the regret, the awe, the realization that they were watching royalty grow in the shadows. But don't get bitter, get better, because chosen ones don't return shade, we rise above it. Your mantle was never in the money. Your power was never in the applause. It was always in your calling, and you carried it like royalty, even when no one was clapping. Now that's spiritual swagger. Point 5. The people started talking, but this time in your favor. It started slow, like a whisper in the wind. A few murmurs here, a glance there. At first, it was barely noticeable. One person casually mentioning your name in a conversation, another pointing out your growth. Hey, you seen how they carrying themselves lately? Yo, I heard they started that business. They pray heavy now. Their energy? It's different. What started as quiet curiosity soon became unstoppable momentum. Like dominoes falling in divine rhythm, your transformation turned heads. And not just in your circle. Word traveled, energy traveled. And before you knew it, people you didn't even know existed were speaking your name with respect. See, when divine favor is on you, it shows. You don't need a billboard or a PR team. God's glory makes the announcement for you. When you align with purpose, when your spirit is rooted in truth, people can feel it, even if they don't understand it. That's why the same streets that once whispered your downfall are now shouting your comeback. The same city that gossiped about your past now celebrates your future. That's not just reputation repair, that's reputation resurrection, powered by something far greater than human approval. That's spiritual vindication. Spirit warrior, this ain't just a glow-up, it's a got-up. What they thought was the end of you was just the quiet before your elevation. And the best part? You didn't have to prove yourself to anyone. Your prayers did that. Your healing did that. Your consistency did that. You didn't clap back. You just clapped for yourself in private and let your growth speak volumes. While others were busy underestimating you, you were busy becoming what they never saw coming. Now, the energy has shifted. People who once laughed at you are biting their tongues. Strangers are defending you in rooms you've never stepped into. That's not popularity. That's divine confirmation. Because when your spirit is right, even people who used to be enemies start feeling convicted. They see something in you they wish they had: peace, discipline, divine confidence. And they can't help but respect it. So stand tall. You didn't just survive the slander, you outgrew it. The same city that doubted you now echoes your name with awe. That's not coincidence. That's God turning the tide in your favor. Keep rising, spirit warrior. The best is yet to come. Point 6. You didn't retaliate. You elevated. You had every reason to go off, every reason to call them out, to pull the receipts, to expose every lie and betrayal they ever whispered behind your back. You could have burned bridges, blasted screenshots, and lit up the group chat like fireworks on the 4th of July. And yet, you didn't. You chose something far more powerful. You chose elevation. And believe it or not, that's the kind of move that silences more noise than any clapback ever could. See, the world often expects you to respond with pettiness, with rage, with drama. But chosen ones, nah, you don't dance to that frequency. You operate on divine timing, on spiritual maturity, on purpose. That's what they don't understand. They thought your silence meant weakness. But really, it was wisdom. You didn't stay quiet because you had nothing to say. You stayed quiet because you had bigger things to say with your success. Your next level was the mic drop. And here's where it gets real. When people realize you knew the truth the whole time, their motives, their schemes, their shade, and still didn't stoop to their level, they start to feel small, convicted even. That's when the respect creeps in. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. Grace like that? It's unforgettable. That's the kind of presence that makes a city talk. Not about what you said, but how you carried yourself. There's real power in letting God prove you right. When you release the need to be understood and instead allow divine justice to work in your favor, that's when doors start flying open. Scientific studies even back this up. Emotional regulation, especially in moments of injustice, is directly tied to higher emotional intelligence and long-term success. You didn't just resist revenge, you rewired your mind for royalty. While they sat around waiting for your meltdown, you were being upgraded, spiritually, mentally, even financially. The same people who mocked your process are now stunned by your progress. You didn't fight for a seat at the table, you built your own. And now, the city can't help but respect you, not because you demanded attention, but because you embodied transformation. So let them talk. Let them sit in their regret. Because while they were busy plotting, you were busy rising. And elevation, my friend, will always be the greatest revenge. Point 7. They see your light and can't deny it anymore. At first, they ignored you, not because you lacked power, but because your quiet strength intimidated them. They overlooked your presence, whispered behind closed doors, and convinced themselves your light would fade. Then came resistance. They tried to discredit you, sabotage you, and dim your glow. But what they didn't understand was that you weren't operating on ordinary fuel. You were walking in divine purpose. Purpose is louder than noise, stronger than doubt, and more magnetic than any lie. Slowly, the truth became undeniable. Your aura didn't just enter rooms, it shifted atmospheres. You didn't command attention, but attention found you anyway. Your words began to carry weight, not just because you spoke, but because you spoke with wisdom, clarity, and spirit. And suddenly, the same city that overlooked you started leaning in, listening, and aligning with your vibration. What's more powerful? You didn't have to beg. You didn't have to force. You didn't argue your worth. You became it. That's the divine difference. People embrace what is authentic, what moves with purpose, and what reflects light they can't deny. You became undeniable not by shouting, but by becoming. And now, even your silence speaks. Spirit warriors, listen carefully. This ain't just your season. It's your testimony. They underestimated you, laughed at you, lied on you. But the Most High never left your side. Now, with the whole city watching, with mouths full of their own words, you walk boldly, with grace, with fire. Remember this. You don't owe him access. You owe God the glory. So walk with your head high. You are the example, the blueprint, the walking miracle. And don't ever forget, they're looking stupid now because they bet against what God had already confirmed. Keep shining, chosen one. Stay awake, stay anointed, stay unbothered, because your story just became someone else's confirmation. If you're still here, Spirit Warrior, drop a star emoji in the comments to let the world know you're still standing. Stay lit, stay led, and stay ready. Because what's next? Gonna blow the whole city's mind. Amen.